there's something
uniquely Jewish.
sacred. Say again?
Uniquely Jewish is what I said.
Yeah. Okay. You're saying uniquely Jewish. I'm saying sacred. I think maybe even we're saying the same thing. There's something uniquely Jewish and sacred and special about using human power to modify nature. And that's why it's so painful when an evil entity like Pharaoh misappropriates that.
And misappropriating it, Pharaoh being the symbol of evil.
Pharaoh being the symbol of evil, and particularly the symbol of evil because of his being absolutely self-absorbed. Pharaoh is the one who's described as saying, I made the river and everything in it. Or I made the river and I made myself. He's a self-made man who worships his own maker. So Pharaoh is evil at its actual core, which is absolute self-absorption to the extent where anything I desire is justified, which is the source of all evil. And ultimately, Pharaoh is not a figure from history. Pharaoh is a persona within each and every one of us.
Right.
That wants to put itself and its desires ahead of everything else.
So you're saying Pharaoh is not the individual. Pharaoh represents something inside of us here today, right? A viewpoint or perspective or a pull inside of us.
Yeah.
And Egypt represents not just ancient Egypt, but any period of time that's exile.
Okay, so yes, Pharaoh is self-will run riot. Being in Egypt means being under Pharaoh's domain, where that ego is running our lives. And therefore, consequently, our greatest human capacities, or let's even lean into it, our Jewish capacity to be innovators and to introduce something new, something creative.
Technological advances.
In the furtherance societal progress. That capacity, instead of being used how it's supposed to be used, and we could talk about in a minute how it's supposed to be used, is being used to feed my self-obsession.
So instead of it being used towards good, it's being used towards evil.
Right, which specifically means to feed my self-obsession, that I'm becoming a genius and innovating how to create more and more technology and tools to serve myself.
Understood. Okay, so I think now we understand why.
You know, when we talk about addiction, they say where there's an addict, there's a way.
Where there's an
addict, there's a way.
Yes.
Right? Where there's a will, there's a way. Where there's an addict, there's a way.
Yes.
So if an addict wants something, there's no one more inventive or more ingenious than an addict who wants to get what they want to get.
100%.
And they're going to figure out a way, even if they have to create some new technology. Right?
Yeah.
So what's so egregious about that is not just that you are exacerbating your addiction by becoming a genius at it. What's so egregious about it is that genius is something that was given to you to be used for another purpose. It has a purpose already. And now, instead of being used for that purpose, which we still haven't spoken about, it's being used for this self-destructive purpose.
Okay, but now what we would understand based on what we've already discussed is, without explaining what that purpose is, is why this was so tedious, why this was described as embittering one's life.
Right.
This process of using their unique gifts towards using their unique gifts, their genius, towards bad instead of good.
Yeah. I mean, there's a movie about a Holocaust survivor who was a concert violinist, and part of his experience was that they, instead of killing him, they made him play violin for the Nazis in the camp. So you could say, well, it saved his life. Yeah, but can you imagine anything more humiliating and embittering than being forced to take a precious God-given talent and use it at the bidding of your tormentors?
Perfect analogy.
So you're a brick maker. We're brick makers. We're innovators. We were sent to this world to figure out how to make the world a better place, and not just by shifting things around and rearranging what's already there, but coming up with new stuff if need be.
Right. Brick makers being a concept. All of these are concepts. The concept of innovating, creating, advancing everything around us.
Right.
To move things forward in a positive way. And
that's right.
And saying, play violin for the Nazis.
That's right. And there's nothing more embittering than that.
This makes sense. You made it make sense. So I understand the negative. You explained that. The self-will.
The misappropriation.
Right. Why it was so painful and the negative it was used for. What is the positive?
So I just want to make sure everyone puts this all together, because we're using a lot of mixed metaphors here. But having to use my creativity and my ingenuity to figure out how to feed my ego, how to feed my addiction, is playing violin for the Nazis. Because that capacity that I have to change things and to, I'm going to use the word that has negative connotations, but it doesn't have to, manipulate things. It means to move things around, to rearrange things, and to make them work in a way they haven't worked before. That's a beautiful, that's a precious and beautiful talent that we were given. And to use that to figure out how to get my way and to try to extract some type of satisfaction out of life is demeaning, it's degrading, and it's the deepest form of slavery.
Right, and we don't have to go,
make that clear.
Right, and we don't have to go far to imagine examples of people using their skills. You and I have both spoke about addiction a lot. We wouldn't have to go far to imagine examples of people using their skills to further their addiction. Right? Someone who has incredible charisma, for example, and can use that to influence a room full of people, and instead uses it to manipulate people to into relationships with them, as an example.
Sure, exactly. And what's egregious about it is that not only is he doing something bad, he's using a precious gift
that has such potential.
Yes, has so much potential, and he's using that thing in order to do something bad. Again, it's playing violin for the Nazis.
Understood.
By the way, maybe it was a pianist. I don't know. I didn't actually see the movie.
Yes.
What?
The idea is there. The concept is there. The analogy
whether it was
is
a
perfect.
piano or it was a violin, I'm sure somebody's going to write it. It wasn't the violin. It was a piano. Okay, whatever it was. Okay.